All right, good evening, everyone. It's social distancing at the chamber, or as we sometimes call it, happy hour with Hammer. As always, joined by the CEO of the Arizona Chamber, Glenn Hammer. We have a special guest today, a very special guest. We're joined by Dr. Michael Strain. He's the Director of Economic Policy Studies and the Arthur F. Burns Scholar in Political Economy at the American Enterprise Institute. He's the author of the new book, The American Dream is Not Dead, but Populism Could Kill It. There it is. There's Glenn selling the soap. That is from Templeton Press. Dr. Strain, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Glenn, kick us off.
Dr. Strain, you recently released a paper from AEI about the Paycheck Protection Program, and this is one of the top things we're working on right now at the Arizona Chamber in terms of educating small businesses on how to apply. I believe in it you included 4 recommendations in terms of how this program could be improved. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the biggest recommendations is the need for an effective public messaging campaign to let businesses know about this program and to encourage their use. One of the most important things at this point, given how rapidly the labor market is deteriorating, is that businesses know that they can hire back workers they have laid off under the program. So not only can you get an 8-week grant to cover your payroll costs for your existing workers, if you quickly hire back workers you've already laid off, then you can get a grant that will be large enough to pay the wages of the workers you'd laid off as well after you hire them back. So this can not only help preserve workers who are currently attached to their employers, currently in jobs, but it can actually reduce the rate by bringing unemployed workers back to their previous employer. That's really important for those workers. It's really important for those businesses. It's also really important for the economy as a whole. You know, the goal should be that once the public health situation clears up, we can snap right back to where we were and have a really rapid recovery. In order for the recovery to be as rapid as possible, we need for workers to find jobs as quickly as possible. You know, right now the unemployment rate is probably around 15%, which is significantly higher than it was even at its peak during the Great Recession era. So those unemployed workers need to find employers, find new jobs, and the best bet for many of them is just going to be to go back to where they worked before, go back to their previous employer. And the Paycheck Protection Program can allow employers to do that even if they're not earning any money right now because they don't have customers. So that's critically important. It's also critically important that the program receive more funding. Congress allocated about $350 billion to this program for the grants portion of the program, the grants to small businesses. That's not going to be enough. We're going to need more than that. And so we need Congress to realize that, or we need the Treasury Department to ask Congress for more money for the program. But we're going to need more money for sure. A third critically important thing is that Treasury implement the program in such a way that banks feel comfortable participating. Banks need to know that they're not going to be held responsible for borrower misrepresentation or for things of that nature. Banks need to be encouraged to just get this money out the door and into the hands of businesses who need it, again, because the economy is deteriorating so quickly. So those are just a few kind of big ticket recommendations to make this as successful as possible.
Dr. Strain, on the medium to larger scale side, there's also some credit facilities that the Department of Treasury is supposed to work on with the Federal Reserve. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that? Because we're hearing increased nervousness among the employers 500 and greater about what's happening to keep those operations from unwinding.
Yeah, so that needs to be worked out as well. And I think what's needed is for obviously Treasury and the Fed to work closely together for those businesses, those larger businesses that you're talking about, to be able to receive guarantees and financing to allow them to continue their operations as well. We want to make sure that happens in such a way that the government doesn't have a controlling interest in these companies. You start to get, kind of into the weeds a little bit, but, if any sort of equity stake could be done through preferred stock rather than common stock, then the government won't be exercising any control, and it shouldn't in any event. You want to make sure that the Fed isn't conducting fiscal policy, but is instead just providing liquidity, which can be done. So there are some big picture goals, but I think large businesses should feel reasonably confident that help is on the way. Obviously, they need to keep the pressure up to make sure that those programs are implemented in the best way possible. But I'm much more concerned about smaller businesses that don't have complicated financial structures, that don't have the ability to issue their own debt and borrow, and that are really going to have a much harder time kind of weathering the storm.
Complexity is definitely the enemy. And I'll just tell you, in Arizona, we've got 1 million workers tied to small businesses, at least. That's not even counting small proprietors. And every day that passes that they don't have this Paycheck Protection Program, businesses, the lights are going out, and utility bills aren't getting paid, rents aren't getting paid, and workers are getting disconnected. So that administrative efficiency part is, in my opinion, a very important piece of its equation. For CARES Act 2, Dr. Schrain, you mentioned additional funding for
such a way. I said I absolutely agree with that, and the programs need to be administered in such a way that that allows typical small business owners to take advantage of them. It can't be extraordinarily complicated. On the borrower side, it's typically not, but you also need to make sure that it's not excessively complicated for banks. And again, I mean, speed is of the essence. We're not used to a situation like this. We're used to a situation in an economic downturn where the unemployment rate is increasing slowly. We're not. What happened? I mean, we in the span of a month and a half, we went from a 3.5% unemployment rate to a 15% unemployment rate. I mean, that's just something that we've never experienced before, and we need to be thinking, with in a new way about this. We need to be looking at this problem with fresh eyes, and we need to recognize that every day we wait, hundreds of thousands of new people are going to lose their jobs, and we just need to get this relief to businesses as quickly as possible.
CARES Act 2, you mentioned more funding for the PPP program. Any idea of how much, and just any other quick ideas of what should be included in the next congressional package?
I mean, at least several $100 billion will be needed. My estimates suggest that the demand for the program could easily exceed $1 trillion. We've already allocated $350 billion. So I think adding a significant amount of additional funding would be appropriate and necessary, and that would also help stem some of the confusion that banks have and stem some of the confusion that businesses have. I mean, a lot of small business owners are going to their CPA and they're saying, or their financial advisor, and they're saying, hey, should I take one of these out? And what a lot of them are hearing are, oh, well, the money's going to go pretty fast, and the money's going to go. If you bank with Bank of America, then you're probably going to get one, but you use a community bank, so it may be less likely because Bank of America is really going to deplete that $350 billion pot faster than a community bank will be able to get the money to you. I mean, we don't want them hearing that message, particularly since unemployment insurance benefits are now so generous. The financial advisors for a lot of small businesses are telling them, there's limited funding for this PPP program. You may not get that loan. Your workers will be fine if you lay them off. You can always rehire them, et cetera, et cetera. And for some small business owners, that may be the right thing to do. And it was the right decision to make UI more generous. But what we need to do is change the structure of the government's policy response so that using the PPP loans is even more attractive than it currently is. And a big part of that is increasing the amount of money available to them.
I can't thank you enough for your focus on that. That is the lifeline, and it's a race, in my opinion, against time. And we'll see Friday, I believe, some of the rules come out from Treasury for independent contractors and sole proprietors. And I'll just say in Arizona, we went mid-pitch in spring training, a record spring training year, to a lot of successful small business people a month ago to now having little or no revenue in their businesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Final point. Your book, The American Dream Is Not Dead, gives us a lot of good ideas going forward. When we get through this mess, any 30,000 foot, any final words on some big policies we should be pursuing to get the American economy rocking and rolling again, Dr. Strain?
Yeah, so what I do in the book is I look at the last 3 decades, and I ask some pretty straightforward questions. How have typical workers fared in terms of their wage growth? How have typical households fared in terms of their income growth? What has the labor market done for middle wage, middle skill jobs? How are we doing? And I think that what I find in the book should give people hope. The story of the past 3 decades is not a story of uninterrupted progress. There have been serious setbacks. There have been serious challenges that American households and American workers have faced. But the story is that over the long haul, over the last 3 decades, American workers have met those challenges. And I think that if you look at the past 3 decades, as I do in my book, and you apply those lessons to the current moment, I think that should give you confidence that this is going to be hard, this is going to be a setback, but that Americans will emerge from this and continue their upward economic climb, continue their economic success story. And I would encourage people to check out the book to see the evidence. There it is. Check out the book to see the evidence of how typical workers and typical households have fared over the last 30 years, and hopefully that will give people some confidence that that Americans will emerge from this stronger than ever, as we always do.
Dr. Strain, on that positive thought, thank you very much for visiting with us today, and thank you for your important work at this difficult time.
Thank you.
Dr. Strain can be found on Twitter at Michael R. Strain. Look up his work on the AEI website. Again, the book, The American Dream Is Not Dead, but Populism Could Kill It. Dr. Strain, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.